Your mind will offer reasons. Your soul will offer truth. Carl Jung. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to bend reality, drawing wealth, success, and opportunities into their lives, while others spend years running in circles? The truth is, it isn't luck. It isn't just talent. It's a way of thinking, a hidden pattern like a secret code that rewrites the very fabric of success. Today, we'll unlock why your intuition is smarter than your logic. And once you see it, you'll never see the world the same way again. Picture a traveler standing at a fork at dusk. One path is paved with neat stones, lit by lanterns that whisper safety. The other path disappears into a forest of shadows and strange, soft music. The mind, dutiful and precise, points to the lit road, known risks, measurable outcomes, spreadsheets of probability. The intuition, the unseen compass beneath the traveler's ribs, listens to the music, feels the damp in the air, tastes an entire world in a single breath, and leans toward the dark. Logic offers maps. Intuition reads the weather of the soul. This is not an argument to abandon reason. Logic is the architect of bridges and the scaffold of civilization. But logic builds from the visible, from data on the page. Intuition builds from a subtler architecture, the sum of your past embodied, the whisper weave of patterns that your mind cannot fully name yet. When trained, it becomes less like a guess and more like a deep, distilled intelligence. It is pattern recognition at speed, the brain's ancient software, upgraded by experience, feeling, and unspoken insight. Imagine intuition as a telescope that sees wavelengths logic cannot register. It perceives currents in human hearts, the faint echo of future possibility, the soft alignment of circumstances that, if acted upon, will amplify into wealth, influence, peace. Logic says there is a 30% chance this venture will succeed based on past metrics. Intuition says, I feel the soil is fertile and the timing fits the moon of market sentiment. The best leaders, the entrepreneurs who create fortune and legacy, learn to let both instruments guide them, but they know when to let the telescope lead. In the rooms where money is made and decisions are life-changing, the tension between intuition and logic plays out like a slow-burning drama. Investors crunch numbers, consultants present models, advisors list pros and cons. Meanwhile, beneath the numbers, an entrepreneur notices something: a competitor's arrogance, a customer's unspoken need, a marketplace that is quietly shifting. They cannot cite a single spreadsheet row that proves their hunch, yet they follow it. They act quickly, decisively, and often astonishingly well. What looks like mysticism is usually acute pattern sensitivity tempered by courage. Courage is the hinge. Intuition without courage becomes indecision. Logic without courage becomes paralysis by analysis. The alchemy of success happens when courage chooses the subtle guidance of intuition and gives it form through disciplined action. That is where wealth and abundance are born, not as fantasies, but as the practical fruit of alignment between inner knowing and outer movement. Your inner compass is not some abstract spiritual luxury. It is currency. It is a key. Let us not trivialize intuition as mere feeling, nor exalt it as a magic wand. It is a faculty that speaks in images, in bodily sensations, in persistent dreams and recurring metaphors. Sometimes it arrives as a tightness in the chest, sometimes as an effortless clarity that refuses to leave you alone. It is often drowned out by the clamorous logic of the anxious mind that insists on proof before action. But proof is retrospective. Intuition is prospective. It is the mind's ability to simulate futures faster than the rational mind can tally them. There is a cosmic rhythm to this. The body carries memory, the heart carries valuation, the mind carries analysis. Together, they form a trinity. When you live only in the analytic mind, you reduce the world to what can be counted. You trade richness for neatness. You trade the vast potential of serendipity for the safety of small certainties. That trade-off often looks sensible until the moment the market pivots, a relationship breaks the expected rules, or a chance encounter becomes the doorway to an empire. At those thresholds, intuition is often the only light. Imagine a sculptor who only uses a ruler, precise proportions, correct measurements, but no soul in the marble. Now imagine the sculptor with a quiet hand that feels the grain beneath the chisel, who notices a vein of gold within the stone and follows it. That is intuition, not opposed to skill, but the secret that animates it. In business, in love, in health, that sense of the hidden vein is the decisive advantage. We live in an era that worships data. Metrics, dashboards, and key performance indicators are indispensable. Yet data tells you what happened. It seldom tells you what will. Intuition, when cultivated, senses what the numbers have yet to reveal. It perceives the gestation of trends, the silent contractions before a breakthrough. The challenge for the modern seeker is to steward both, to read numbers with humility, and to listen to inner signals with rigor. Listening to intuition requires practices as pragmatic as they are sacred. Silence, slow movement, rituals that sharpen perception, reflection before decisions, sleep that honors the dreaming mind. These are not soft luxuries, they are strategic operations. When your nervous system is calm, your intuition speaks clearly. When you are hurried, scattered, and numbed by distraction, your inner compass fuzzes, and you confuse fear for wisdom. The discipline of inner work, meditation, journaling, honest solitude, becomes a competitive advantage. It reforms your sensory apparatus so you can hear the faint currents of opportunity. There is also a moral economy here. Intuition tends to prioritize long-term harmony. Logic, when untempered, often favors short-term gains, quick profits, immediate efficiency, the seductive comfort of the known. Intuition reminds you of relationship costs, unseen liabilities, the compound interest of trust. It guides decisions that may look irrational today, but compound into abundance over time. The merchant who honors a relationship when logic says quiet, the leader who invests in a team member who is not yet productive, the investor who backs a founder because of the quiet resilience they feel. These are intuition-led choices that yield exponential returns. But you will ask, how do we tell intuition apart from wishful thinking? How do we avoid the trap of mistaking desire for insight? The answer is simple in principle and demanding in practice. Test. Intuition without accountability becomes superstition. The wise act on hunches, but design experiments and feedback loops. They test small, scale fast, and use results to refine their inner maps. This is not a binary choice between magic and measurement. It is an iterative dance where each step informs the next. So, if logic is the map and intuition the compass, know this: maps are indispensable, but they are drawn from past landscapes. Compasses point to deeper patterns. In uncertain terrain, in markets, in relationships, in health, compasses can guide you through fog where maps fail. The mastery is learning to use both and, more importantly, to let the compass quietly correct the map as you move.
Tonight, as you sit with this idea, listen for the echo in your own life. Where did you ignore a soft insistence and later find your error? Where did you follow a neat argument and discover it hollow? The soul keeps a ledger. Wisdom is the practice of reconciling those entries, of learning the language of your deeper senses so that your actions are born of both clarity and courage. There is a paradox to hold. The more you use your intuition responsibly, the more it becomes reliable. But it asks something in return. It asks for humility, for time, for the willingness to be wrong occasionally in service of growing truer. It asks you to cultivate presence so that the quiet voice can be heard over the static of busyness. The path ahead is not an abandonment of reason. It is its awakening. It is the moment when the mind recognizes its own limits and invites the broader intelligence of the body, the heart, and the hidden field of pattern to collaborate. When that collaboration occurs, decisions become not only smarter, but more humane. They generate wealth, yes, but not at the expense of life. They create abundance that is sustainable because it is aligned with deeper harmonies. Now, imagine the traveler again. The lantern-lit road still exists, neat and sensible. The forest still hums. But this time, the traveler has learned to read the faint rustle in leaves, to trust the slight warmth at the base of their throat when something is true. They step into the dark with maps in their pack and a compass in their chest. The air tastes of possibility.
The first truth about intuition is that it does not shout, it whispers. And yet within that whisper lies a universe of intelligence more ancient than the mind that doubts it. To understand why your intuition is smarter than your logic, we must unweave the illusion of control that logic offers and reveal the deeper symphony that intuition conducts beneath it all. Logic is a mathematician sitting in a well-lit room, arranging numbers with precision. Intuition is an ocean, vast, alive, unpredictable, where currents move beneath what the eye can see. Both are beautiful, both necessary, but the mathematician believes only what is in front of them, while the ocean feels the moon pulling from miles away. It knows tides before they happen. The modern world has taught us to worship the mathematician, to prize reason, analysis, and evidence above all else. And indeed, logic built bridges, cured diseases, created the algorithms that run empires. But when we begin to think logic alone is the whole cathedral, we forget that intuition is the ground beneath it, the soil from which every rational insight first grows. Every great innovator, from Da Vinci to Tesla to Jobs, spoke of moments of insight that arrived not from calculation, but revelation. They could not explain how they knew, only that they knew. It was as if the universe slipped them a secret blueprint. And once you felt that level of knowing, every spreadsheet feels like tracing paper against the night sky. Intuition is how the subconscious communicates with the conscious. It is the bridge between the infinite processing of your inner universe and the narrow doorway of your active mind. Your brain gathers billions of signals every day, sights, sounds, micro-expressions, subtle cues of tone and timing. And while logic filters most of this data out, intuition keeps it all. It distills it into something simple, a pull, a warmth, a gut sense. That feeling is not magic, It's your neural network, your embodied memory, and your energetic intelligence converging into one clear pulse. Logic demands evidence. Intuition is evidence translated into feeling. Now let us unfold a few of the core contrasts, illusions versus truths, that define this dance between logic and intuition. Illusion 1. Logic makes you safe. Truth. Logic makes you predictable. It keeps you within what has been proven, which is another way of saying it binds you to the past. It avoids mistakes, yes, but in doing so, it also avoids miracles. Intuition, on the other hand, leads you to uncertainty. But uncertainty is the birthplace of creation, the forge where wealth and genius are born. Illusion 2. Intuition is vague and emotional. Truth. Intuition is the most sophisticated data integration system you possess. It speaks the language of feeling not because it is irrational, but because emotion is the fastest way the body can translate massive information into an actionable signal. It's not soft, it's swift. The emotion is the envelope, the intelligence is the letter inside. Illusion 3. Logic is for business. Intuition is for art. Truth. The most successful entrepreneurs, investors, and leaders use intuition as their compass and logic as their tool. Logic helps you navigate the terrain, but intuition tells you which mountain is worth climbing. Without intuition, effort multiplies without direction. With it, action becomes aligned, efficient, elegant, exponential. When we talk about wealth, success, and abundance, logic alone can show you how to climb the ladder, but intuition shows you which wall it's leaning on. You can execute flawlessly and still end up in the wrong building. Intuition ensures your precision serves your purpose. Consider the paradox of manifestation. It isn't about manipulating reality with thought, it's about aligning with it. Logic says, "Show me the path and I will walk it." Intuition says, "Walk and the path will reveal itself." One demands control, the other invites collaboration with the unseen. And in that collaboration, life begins to cooperate with you. You become a co-creator, not a controller. In the psychology of high performance, intuition appears as flow, the state in which the boundary between thinking and doing dissolves. In flow, you don't plan every movement, you become the movement. Athletes describe it, artists describe it, great negotiators, investors, even surgeons describe it. It is logic transcended, not abandoned. The moment when your training and intellect surrender to a deeper rhythm that simply knows. Flow is intuition operationalized. Let's talk about trust, because intuition's intelligence is only as powerful as your willingness to believe it. Every time you ignore your inner nudge, you weaken the bridge. Every time you act on it, even in small ways, you strengthen it. Trusting intuition is not blind faith. It is a scientific process of calibration. You test, you observe outcomes, you refine your internal compass. You begin to notice that the universe responds, that the more you listen, the more it speaks. This is how intuition matures from whimsy into wisdom. In ancient traditions, intuition was considered the eye between worlds, the third eye, the ajna, the inner sight. It wasn't a mystical accessory, it was an evolved perception, a human technology for survival and creation. In modern language, we might call it pattern sensitivity, the capacity to detect subtle regularities across chaos, to see meaning where others see noise. The greatest traders, the sharpest strategists, the most inspired artists, they all share that trait. They sense before they analyze. They act before they articulate. And because they trust that sense, their timing feels supernatural. The irony is that intuition is not opposed to science. It is the seed of it. Every scientific revolution began as an intuitive leap that logic later confirmed. Einstein himself said, "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant." but society has built temples to the servant and forgotten the gift. It's time to rebuild that inner temple, to restore the balance between the known and the felt, because intuition does not replace your logic, it informs it. It shows you what to measure, where to look, and when to act. It whispers the right question before logic begins its search for answers, and that, perhaps, is its ultimate genius. Intuition does not wait for proof. It creates the conditions where proof becomes visible. When you live guided by intuition, your actions begin to synchronize with hidden forces. Opportunities appear as if summoned. Relationships align with uncanny timing. The mind, initially skeptical, watches as life itself begins to cooperate with your inner direction. That's not coincidence, it's coherence. Intuition is coherence between the self and the field, the alignment of inner state with outer pattern. When you feel peace and clarity inside, you resonate with outcomes that match that frequency. That's why inner work is wealth work. That's why your emotional mastery is not a luxury, but an investment strategy. The intuitive mind does not just seek abundance, it creates it, because it knows abundance begins with alignment. And so the deeper truth emerges. Your intuition is not smarter than your logic because it knows more, but because it knows first. It does not compete with logic, it precedes it. It hands logic the blueprint, and logic builds the structure. One is the architect of energy, the other the engineer of matter. Together they are the twin engines of creation. To live intuitively is to live in rhythm with life, to sense when to push and when to pause, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to hold on and when to release. It is not a mystical privilege, it is your birthright. But to claim it, you must relearn the art of listening, not just to others, but to the quiet pulse beneath your own thoughts. The logic-dominated mind asks, "What is the guarantee?" The intuitive heart answers, "The guarantee is growth." And in that single trade, certainty for evolution, you reclaim your true intelligence. The traveler now stands not between two paths, but within them. The lanterns of reason in one hand, the compass of intuition in the other. They walk neither blindly nor bound, but balanced. Every step forward becomes both calculation and trust, an elegant fusion of the seen and unseen. And as the traveler disappears into the horizon of possibility, one question echoes through the forest of the mind.
Let us now step deeper into the mythic heart of this journey. Night falls upon the desert of thought. The stars stretch across the black canvas like ancient runes, each one whispering, "Remember." It is here, beneath this wide silence, that stories come alive. Stories that are not merely told, but remembered through the soul. Because the language of intuition is story, symbolic, fluid, dreamlike. And through story, we can glimpse truths too vast for logic to measure. Once, there was a merchant of maps. He was renowned across kingdoms for his precision. His maps were perfect, clean, measured, defined. Every river curved exactly where it should, every mountain had its proper name. He built his wealth upon these maps, and his pride upon their accuracy. One day, a wanderer came to his shop. Her cloak was torn, her boots thick with dust, her eyes bright with the kind of knowing that comes from walking without destination. She said, "I need a map to the city of gold." The merchant smiled. "Ah, many have asked for that one. I can sell you the finest, drawn from the oldest records." He rolled out a parchment inked with intricate lines and roots. The wanderer studied it, then shook her head. "No," she said, "that is not it." The merchant frowned. "Not it? This map has guided explorers for centuries."
The wanderer smiled softly. If that were true, they would have found the city by now. And with that, she left. No map, only a faint hum under her breath as she walked toward the horizon. Years passed. The merchant grew rich, yet restless. Every day he sold maps. Every night he stared at the empty horizon beyond his window. The city remained undiscovered. Until one night, weary of his own certainty, he closed his shop and followed the faint trail of that wanderer's footsteps. He walked without a map. He walked through storms and silence. He learned to read wind instead of ink, shadow instead of symbol. He began to feel directions instead of measuring them. And one dawn, as the first light struck the dunes, there it was, golden towers rising out of the morning mist, the city of gold. He laughed until he wept, realizing that every map he had drawn had been a reflection of where others had been, but intuition had guided him to where no one yet had gone. The city of gold was never on any parchment, because its gates open only to those who trust the compass within. This is the first truth of intuition. It cannot be mapped by others. It must be walked by you. Logic will sell you the maps of other people's successes, the formulas, the proven steps, the checklists. But intuition will guide you to the untouched territory of your genius, the creation that only you can bring into the world. To live by intuition is to accept the sacred loneliness of originality, to walk a path no one has charted because your soul came to chart it. The second story is of the alchemist of the heart. He spent his youth studying formulas, mixing metals, measuring fire, calculating ratios. He sought to turn lead into gold. And though he was exacting, nothing worked. Years turned to decades. He grew bitter, skeptical, weary of myths. One night, by the dying light of his furnace, a child wandered into his workshop. "What are you doing?" the child asked. "Trying to make gold," said the alchemist. The child looked puzzled. "Why?" "So I can be free." The child pointed to his chest. "Then why not start there?" The alchemist laughed at first, then felt something stir within him, a warmth he could not calculate. That night, he stopped working on metals and began to listen to the rhythm of his heartbeat. He sat for days, then weeks, watching the fire not as a tool, but as a teacher. He began to notice, when his heart was peaceful, the flame burned steady. When he was angry or anxious, it sputtered. He realized the furnace outside was only reflecting the furnace within. And one dawn, when his heart was utterly still, the lead before him melted and glowed with a radiance beyond fire. It transmuted not because of chemistry, but because of coherence. The secret of alchemy was never about turning metal to gold. It was about turning fear to presence. That is what intuition does. It transforms inner confusion into clarity without words. Intuition is the alchemist within you. It takes the raw lead of your experiences, mistakes, heartbreaks, failures, and refines them into wisdom. Logic will analyze the event. Intuition will absorb its meaning. And in that absorption lies your evolution. Now imagine the traveler and the river. The traveler came upon a river that seemed impossible to cross. The current roared, the stones were slippery, and there was no bridge in sight. He waited for others, for boats, for instructions, but none came. Finally, exhausted, he sat by the bank and closed his eyes. He breathed. And in the stillness, he heard something, not in words, but in feeling. Step where the water is quiet. He opened his eyes. There, just beneath the foam, he noticed small eddies of calm between the surges, stepping stones revealed only in stillness. One by one he crossed, not by logic, but by listening. Halfway through, he looked back and realized there was never one true path across the river. The river revealed itself differently to each traveler, depending on how deeply they could listen. This is how intuition works. It doesn't hand you a map. It makes the next stone visible only when you take the current step with trust. The bridge appears only for the one who walks. In all these stories, the merchant, the alchemist, the traveler, the pattern repeats. Logic serves the known. Intuition serves the becoming. Logic relies on memory. Intuition responds to mystery. Logic secures safety. Intuition births transformation. But the real magic is that they are not enemies, they are dance partners. Logic creates structure. Intuition fills it with spirit. Logic defines the container. Intuition determines what lives inside it. In that balance, human potential finds its power. We could think of the entire universe as a living metaphor for this relationship. The sun, pure logic, radiates predictable light. The moon, intuition, reflects and softens that light into mystery, into tides, into dreams. You need both. Sunlight for growth, moonlight for meaning. Together, they keep life in rhythm. In you, that rhythm is felt as the conversation between your head and your heart. When the head dominates, life feels mechanical. When the heart leads without wisdom, life can drift into chaos. But when they harmonize, when intuition and logic bow to each other, you experience flow, clarity, and creation that feels effortless. This harmony is what ancient mystics called alignment and what modern psychology calls integration. It's not about suppressing logic or exalting intuition. It's about making them lovers instead of rivals. In one final parable, the dreamer and the storm. A dreamer once sailed into uncharted waters, seeking a hidden island, the one said to hold the answers to all creative questions. Days turned to weeks, storms shattered his sails. His compass spun wildly, no longer pointing north. He nearly gave up.
But one night, as lightning ripped through the sky, he realized something strange. His body leaned instinctively in one direction each time the lightning struck. He began to trust that leaning, that visceral pull, that intuitive gravity. He followed it. And when dawn came, there it was, the island, golden in the morning sun. The compass had failed, but the current within him had not. The island wasn't a place at all. It was a state of being. The moment he trusted his internal current, the external world rearranged itself to reflect it. Every myth about intuition in every culture points to the same eternal pattern. When the external map ends, the internal compass begins. And it always leads to transformation, from fear to faith, from scarcity to abundance, from logic to living wisdom. Because intuition, when followed with courage, always takes you home to yourself. And when you are at home within yourself, every path leads to gold. As the stars fade and dawn breaks over this landscape of symbols, we are left with one shimmering question. What's in your internal landscape?
Now we descend from the mythic into the tangible, where the stars of intuition meet the soil of daily life. The stories have stirred the soul, but now we ask, how does one live this? How do we bring intuition, this silent compass, this shimmering guidance, into the noise and grind of the modern world? How do we merge the mystical with the practical, the unseen with the profitable, the feeling with the form? Because the truth is, intuition is not an escape from the world. It is a way to master it. To live intuitively is to operate from a higher bandwidth of intelligence, one that includes logic but is not bound by it. It's the difference between rowing a boat with muscle and raising the sail to catch the wind. Logic rows, intuition sails. Both move you, but one uses force, the other uses flow. The modern human, especially the entrepreneur, the visionary, the leader, is taught to row harder, work more, analyze more, plan more. But rowing endlessly through data and strategy leads to exhaustion, not expansion. Intuition says, raise the sail. Let the wind of timing, energy, and alignment carry you further than force ever could. So, how does this look in real life? Let's make it tangible. 1. In decision-making. Logic says, what's the cost? What's the risk? What's the probability? Intuition whispers, how does it feel in your body? Before making your next big move, whether it's an investment, a partnership, a job, or a leap of faith, pause. Close your eyes. Breathe. Picture the outcome vividly. Now notice, does your body expand or contract? Expansion feels like openness, warmth, curiosity. Contraction feels like tightness, heaviness, resistance. The body registers truth faster than the brain can reason. This is not superstition, it's neurobiology. Your nervous system carries millions of years of survival wisdom. It knows when something aligns long before your conscious mind writes a pros and cons list. If logic is your advisor, intuition is your investor. It funds decisions that logic cannot yet justify, but will later prove visionary. 2. In wealth and career. Most people chase money through effort. The intuitive creator attracts it through resonance. This isn't magical thinking. It's pattern recognition married to emotional mastery. When you align your work with your authentic energy, when your words, emotions, and intentions point in the same direction, you emit coherence. Coherence is magnetic. It draws opportunity, clients, partners, and synchronicities toward you because people unconsciously trust energy that feels integrated. We've all felt this. You meet someone and immediately sense trust or tension before they even speak. That is intuitive data, subtle frequencies picked up by the heart and nervous system. Successful entrepreneurs call it gut instinct, but it's really intuitive pattern detection operating faster than reason. The key to wealth creation through intuition is simple. Follow aliveness. Whatever makes you feel most alive, that surge of creative fire, that natural joy,
That sense of meaningful contribution is your internal GPS for abundance. Life rewards energy that expands life. When you follow aliveness, money follows you. 3. In relationships, logic measures compatibility. Intuition feels resonance. Logic says, this person checks the boxes. Intuition asks, does this person amplify my peace or disturb it? To live intuitively in love is to notice subtle energy exchanges. You'll begin to see patterns, not just in words, but in vibration. How does your body respond when they enter the room? Do you feel seen or do you shrink? Does the conversation leave you expanded, inspired, curious, or heavy and uncertain? Logic will try to explain these sensations, to label them and rationalize them. But intuition doesn't explain, it reveals. It shows you truths too complex for language, but too real to ignore. Trusting those signals isn't weakness, it's self-respect in its purest form. And here's the paradox. When you trust your intuitive boundaries, you attract people whose energy match your integrity. Your relationships become less about need and more about resonance, less about fixing, more about growing together. 4. In creativity and innovation. Creativity is intuition made visible. Every great breakthrough in art, science, or business begins as a feeling that something unseen is waiting to be born. The intuitive creator doesn't chase ideas, they listen for them. They know when to act, when to pause, when to let the silence gestate. This patience is not laziness, it is wisdom. Because creation is not a linear process, it is rhythmic. Logic moves in straight lines. Intuition moves in spirals. The spiral may seem slow, but it always returns higher, deeper, truer. When you trust that rhythm, working when inspired, resting when called, surrendering to seasons of silence, you enter creative alignment. And from that alignment, your ideas carry an energy the world can feel. That's why certain works of art, certain speeches, certain brands vibrate. They are infused with intuitive truth, not just clever design. 5. In emotional mastery. Emotions are not obstacles to intuition, they are its messengers. Anger, fear, sadness, these are not flaws to fix, but signals to decode. When you meet them with awareness, not judgment, they reveal deeper guidance. For example, fear often means growth is near, you're expanding beyond comfort. Sadness often means it's time to release what no longer serves. Anger often means a boundary is being crossed. To integrate intuition practically, you must learn to feel before you fix. Sit with emotion as information. Ask, what are you trying to tell me? Then act from understanding, not reaction. This transforms emotional chaos into intuitive clarity, the ultimate foundation for resilience and success. 6. In manifestation and opportunity. Manifestation isn't wishful thinking, it's intuitive strategy aligned with emotional frequency. The law of attraction works not through fantasy, but through vibration and attention. Your intuition is the radar that tells you what to focus on and when to act. When you visualize your desired reality, you are not tricking the universe. You are training your intuition to notice opportunities that match your frequency. It's like tuning a radio. Logic keeps adjusting the dial, trying to calculate the exact frequency, while intuition feels when the station is clear. And the moment you feel clarity, that deep, calm certainty that this future is real, you begin behaving in alignment with it.
That behavior magnetizes circumstances that match it. This is how intuition becomes a tool of manifestation. 7. In leadership and influence. The most powerful leaders in history, the ones who shape culture and bend the arc of possibility, are deeply intuitive. They sense mood, momentum, timing. They know when to speak and when to hold silence. Their intuition allows them to read the field, to sense what a group, a company, or a movement needs before it can articulate it. This is not charisma by accident. It is the intuitive reading of energy and intention. A great leader feels into the collective before making decisions. They sense the invisible threads that connect people, and they move those threads with integrity. This is the next frontier of leadership: energetic intelligence. Logic may win arguments. Intuition wins hearts. To live this way requires discipline, the discipline of slowing down. You cannot hear your intuition while scrolling endlessly, rushing meetings, or drowning in noise. The intuitive mind speaks in the quiet between thoughts. To integrate it practically, you must build rituals of stillness. Morning reflection before you act. Evening review before you sleep. Moments throughout the day to pause, breathe, listen. That is not weakness, that is strategy. It is how you realign your compass before your map becomes useless. The world is full of people chasing logic-based goals, quarterly targets, data-driven decisions, algorithmic formulas. But the ones who rise beyond competition, the ones who innovate, attract, and transform, are those who listen to the faint hum beneath the metrics. They feel when the wave is about to turn. They invest not in what is trending, but in what will resonate. That's intuition in action, and it's the most profitable form of intelligence on Earth. To live intuitively is not to abandon the modern world. It is to master it with grace. It's how you turn effort into elegance. It's how you turn timing into treasure. It's how you move through life not as a struggler, but as a strategist of energy. And as the traveler from our earlier tales stands at yet another crossroad, the map in one hand, the compass in the other, they realize something profound. They no longer need to choose between logic and intuition. They have become the bridge itself. Their very being is the integration. And so the question now becomes a quiet invitation, a doorway to completion and awakening.
Let us now complete the journey, the full circle where wisdom meets embodiment, where knowing becomes being. The desert dawns again. The traveler stands on a high ridge overlooking all the paths once walked, the paved roads of logic, the wild forests of intuition, the rivers crossed by faith. Below lies a landscape shimmering with possibility, no longer divided by fear or certainty, but woven together by understanding. This is where the two hemispheres of your inner world, the rational and the intuitive, finally meet. They merge not as rivals, but as partners in the divine architecture of your life. You see, life was never asking you to choose between reason and intuition. It was asking you to learn their dance, to let logic serve intuition's vision, and intuition feed logic's precision. When the two harmonize, you become unstoppable. Because now your decisions are not just smart, they are aligned. They don't just make sense, they make soul. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe slowly. Feel the pulse beneath your skin, that quiet rhythm that has been with you since before you could think. That is intuition, ancient, patient, endlessly loyal. It does not argue. It simply waits for you to listen. It speaks in subtle language, a pull, a knowing, a moment of stillness before a choice.
Every time you honor it, you step closer to coherence. Every time you ignore it, the world feels a little more fragmented. Intuition is not loud because truth does not need to shout. It already knows you'll come back when you're ready. In a world addicted to certainty, the intuitive soul becomes a quiet revolutionary. You learn to find peace in uncertainty, to navigate by feeling rather than by formula. You begin to trust that life unfolds not to you, but through you, as though the universe itself is expressing its intelligence through your courage. And that is what intuition truly is. The universe speaking through your individuality. It is God, Source, the field, the quantum, whatever you wish to call it, guiding you in the dialect of your own nervous system. When you trust it, you become fluent in destiny. You begin to sense that the events of your life are not random, but rhythmic, that even setbacks have choreography, that every loss hides an instruction, that every wrong turn is a lesson in direction, not a verdict of failure. Intuition refines your relationship with time. Logic wants immediate answers, quick fixes, measurable progress. Intuition understands seasons, planting, gestation, bloom, harvest, rest. It whispers not yet when your ego wants now. It knows that delay is not denial, it's calibration. When you live this way, patience becomes power. You stop chasing timelines and start syncing with divine timing. And then everything accelerates. Not because you push harder, but because you finally stopped pushing against yourself. Let's bring it closer to home. Look at the moments that shaped your life, the relationship that changed everything, the move that opened new doors, the decision that made no logical sense but felt right. Was it your intellect that guided you there? Or was it something deeper, a magnetic pull, an inexplicable yes? That was intuition, the hidden intelligence behind your best leaps. And if you trace your triumphs, you'll see the same signature again and again. When you listened, you rose. When you hesitated, you learned. This is not punishment, it's training. Life has been teaching you to trust yourself all along. Every missed opportunity was not a failure, it was practice. Every heartbreak was not destruction, it was recalibration. Every silence was not absence, it was preparation. Because intuition does not work on your schedule, it works on your readiness. Now, in this moment, you are ready. You wouldn't have listened this far if some part of you weren't already awakening, remembering that your intuition is not a mystical luxury, but your most practical instrument for success. The most profitable, peaceful, and powerful people on this planet are not those who know the most, but those who trust themselves the most. Because when you trust yourself, you move with integrity. And integrity magnetizes everything you desire: money, love, peace, purpose. It is all drawn to the same frequency: wholeness. So what does it mean truly to live from intuition? It means to wake each morning and ask, not what should I do, but what feels alive to do. It means to measure success not by applause, but by alignment. It means to choose quiet over noise, essence over image, timing over hustle. It means to let your logic plan, but let your intuition decide when to leap. Because intuition is your direct line to the quantum field, the infinite intelligence that arranges coincidences, opens doors, and whispers to others on your behalf. When you follow it, you don't manipulate life. You dance with it. And that dance creates miracles that logic could never choreograph. There is a story told among mystics.
A disciple once asked his teacher, "Master, how will I know when I am truly wise?" The teacher smiled. "When your mind bows to your heart, and your heart trusts your mind." That is the sacred marriage. That is the inner empire. That is when wealth, peace, and purpose stop being goals and become your natural expression. Because when intuition leads and logic follows, everything you build carries the vibration of truth, and truth always prospers. It prospers in business, in relationships, in art, in health. It multiplies because it harmonizes. That is the unseen mathematics of the universe. Coherence equals abundance. So let this be your remembering. You are not here to be perfectly logical. You are here to be divinely intelligent. You are not here to predict the future. You are here to create it. And creation begins with a whisper. Your whisper. The quiet pole that says, "This way." Follow that voice. It will rarely give you the whole map, but it will always give you the next step. And that step is enough. Now, as this reflection draws to a close, pause and feel this truth. Your intuition has always been with you. It guided you here, and now it asks only one thing: to be trusted, daily, deliberately, devotedly. So tomorrow, when you wake, before you scroll, before you plan, before you chase, place your hand on your heart. Breathe and ask, "What is life asking of me today?" Then listen. The whisper you hear will be wiser than any strategy, truer than any trend, and wealthier than any number. That whisper is you, the real you. And when you trust it, the world begins to trust you back. Positive inner conversation, reminding you that the most intelligent conversation you'll ever have is the one between your mind and your soul.